and welcome. You're watching Newsx and I'm Megha Sharma. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has started his 5-nation tour, during which he will be attending the BRICS summit in Brazil. The Prime Minister will also visit Argentina, Ghana, Namibia and Trinidad and Tobago. Ghana will be the first stop in the Prime Minister's itinerary, where he will be meeting President John Dramani Mahama. Prime Minister Modi will be in Ghana today and tomorrow. After visiting Ghana, the Prime Minister will head to Trinidad and Tobago, a country with which India shares deep-rooted historical, cultural and people-to-people connections. The Prime Minister will meet the President, Christine Carla Kangalo, who was the chief guest at this year's Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, and Prime Minister Kamala Persad Bisensar, who has recently assumed office for the second term. Later, he will be travelling to Buenos Aires, the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Argentina in 57 years. Let's start this conversation. Joining me on the telecast is Professor Madhav Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, let's hear it from you. Most importantly, the longest tour that the Prime Minister has embarked on, last 8 days, he is going to be visiting these 5 countries. But most important, of course, the BRICS summit, and not just that, the President of Brazil, Lula da Silva, is going to be inviting Prime Minister Narendra Modi for a state visit. How important and significant the meeting of these leaders is going to be?
Well, Megha, you said it very correctly. It's an extremely important tour, and I'll give you the reasons why. Of course, Brazil, the host nation, where the Prime Minister is a state guest. It's obviously the largest country by far in South America, and it has also got a very significant European diaspora, and therefore there's a lot of significance in that diaspora as well, where the Prime Minister is concerned. He is regarded as one of the top 4 world leaders among the 4 great powers. So that's very important. Argentina is very important, basically to underline that the Prime Minister is wedded to the interests of India and not to the interests of any other country. Argentina is also extremely important country. Again, a country with extensive linkages with Europe, and there's no question that's a very important reason behind the Prime Minister visiting, apart from the fact that Brazil and Argentina are extremely rich in natural resources. When we talk of Ghana, well, it's a country which is highly influential in that part of Africa, extremely influential, and has a very large influence, and has been a friend of India for a very long time, since the time of Kwame Nkrumah, a great friend of India, and that friendship has endured and in fact become strengthened during the Prime Ministership of Narendra Modi. When we talk of Namibia, another very important country, it may not look so in the map, but the reality is it has got very precious rare earths in it, according to several studies, and India is looking to diversify its supply of rare earths, is now too dependent on China, and is not entirely sure that dependence is healthy. It is almost certainly not. So obviously that's going to be a very important component. The fact that the Prime Minister is visiting is itself of great significance, and I think the Namibian people will highly appreciate that culture, that gesture. Trinidad and Tobago, well, they have a very large Indian diaspora, but apart from that, they have very large and very, very alert and active diaspora population comprising of people of different ethnic groups, and these different ethnic groups all live in harmony together. It's not like some parts of the world, for example, Fiji during some time, where the ethnic groups were basically one was pitted against the other. In Trinidad and Tobago, the ethnic groups are all working very smoothly together, and it's a very important example of what the Prime Minister frequently says, that hum anek hai aur hum ek hai. I think Trinidad and Tobago, and of course in a slightly different scale, exemplifies that very well. So overall, the very, very carefully crafted visit,
Yeah.
very, very carefully crafted countries that the Prime Minister is traveling to, and I admire his stamina, frankly, for going through this grueling 8-day visit, almost one country after the other. So it's an amazing stamina, and we have to really hand it to the Prime Minister for that. Thank you, Megha.
Ambassador Manju Seth, let's hear your views also on this, and most particularly about the Global South pitch that India has proposed and also worked upon at G20 Leader Summit that took place 2 years ago. That was the agenda that India carried forward, and these visits to these significant importance that these visits hold to these countries that have been cherry-picked by the Prime Minister in South America as well as in Africa goes on to show how India is ready to walk the talk. What do you think?
Absolutely, India is really ready to walk the talk, and we see that visits to these countries by Indian Prime Ministers taking place after decades in almost every case. And not even one country of these countries every one of these countries has been a friend of India, have been very supportive, and had excellent relations with each one of them. And this, the tour that the Prime Minister has undertaken is sending a message. Also, yes, it's about the global South, the importance of the global South. And India wants to bring them all together. It's not only about India's leadership, but it's also about the collaboration on key issues of mutual benefit, I think. I believe this is going to be mutually beneficial. Each country, for instance, in Ghana, there's talk of setting up a pharmaceutical hub and a vaccine hub. And, so all the issues, if you look at in each country, it's all very, very important and mutually beneficial. There's no visit, none of the countries' visits to any of these countries is, in a way, unimportant, if I put it that way. It is extremely important. Brazil, of course, is very important at their bilateral visit. In Namibia, for its, where we are likely to have collaboration on lithium, which is an emerging, rare earths and minerals. So it's very important collaboration there. In Ghana, where it's an important West Asian country, part of ECOWAS. So that is also another, for trade, for investments, for all good collaboration on the builateral front. If you look at Argentina, again, the Prime Minister is visiting after many years, and Argentina has a good, many opportunities for Indians, and we have some Indian companies there, but many more opportunities exist for two-way investments, trade and investments. And as I said, with Trinidad Tobago, and as Professor Nalapat also said, Trinidad Tobago has a huge Indian origin diaspora, with both the Prime Minister and President being of Indian origin or with Indian roots. And so they, it is again, a very important country in the Caribbean. So the choice of all these countries, I think, across in South Africa, in South America, Africa, and in the Caribbean, is a clear indicator of India's intentions in today's world where, the relationships are, all in disarray, should I say, given the global churn, the global geopolitical shifts that are taking place. So these relationships have always been good and steady. And I think the Prime Minister going to these countries and reiterating the importance of each of these countries for India and vice versa, for both mutually, I believe it is all mutually beneficial, then only a relationship stands and has a certain strength. Megha.
Absolutely. Dr. Shahid Kohli, again, the economic benefits that India is going to rake in, and not just India, but the corresponding country where the Prime Minister is visiting, are going to be immense. And then there already has been a mention of supply chains and building critical energies and exploring opportunities to buy rare earths. Lithium is something that is the focus point of all countries, of all groupings, of all blocks. There's something, a joint statement on this regard was also released at the G7 Leaders Summit, where Canada was the host. This happened just a few weeks ago. How important has it become for India to have its foot in the door when it comes to African and South American nations, keeping in mind China is also doing something similar at a faster speed? It has started way before India has.
Good evening, Megha. Good evening to my fellow panelists and Newsx viewers. I see this visit in the backdrop of two very important global situations, Megha. One is with regard to America. We are in the middle of a bit of a limbo of a trade deal. I mean, America wants it to push its dairy and agri into India, which of course India, because of the structure of economy, cannot directly allow. President Trump keeps making announcements of we're going to do a big deal with India and so forth. I think he just tries to create a situation where, the deal is probably moving positively, but we don't know the outcome. The second situation is vis-a-vis China. We are facing squeeze from China about the rare earth minerals. A lot of industries in India, not many people know, are stuck because of the supply chain disruption deliberately caused by China for various reasons. I'm not going into that. Second, a recent news came, Megha. This is all relevant to Prime Minister's visit. Why I'm mentioning it here, because the backdrop has to be understood properly. Fertilizers, 80% of the fertilizers in India of some very important crops, they come from China, and they have also been blocked in the name of inspections and all those things. So China is indirectly, and we should also not forget there are some, unconfirmed news coming from China about President Xi Jinping, some protests in China. The problem in China is it's not very transparent in terms of flow of information. But then there is some kind of news which is emanating from there, which is sounding of some political turmoil in China. So this is the backdrop in which Prime Minister is on this 5-nation tour. Whereas I agree with Professor Nalapat about Prime Minister's stamina, because he's going to the other side of the earth. He's going to travel half the earth. It's a very, very tiring routine, on being on the flights for such a long time. We all know Brazil, Argentina are not next door. There you have to fly right up to the end of the earth. Well, all the nations picked here, and I'm looking forward most eagerly. Of course, Ghana, Namibia, Trinidad Tobago. Ghana is about, as they call ECOWAS, the Economic Community of Western Asian States. I think a lot of people may not have heard of that, but Ghana enjoys a very important position there. So by interacting with Ghana, Prime Minister would be basically deliberating with the entire group of ECOWAS. And then, of course, Trinidad Tobago is CARICOM, the Caribbean community, as they say. Of course, there is the ethnic connection there with the Indian origin people. But for me, if you ask me, apart from Namibia, where on his way back he's going to stop which is rich in mining. But for me, basically, Brazil is going to be the most important of all the halls, because that's where the BRICS summit happens. Now, why is it important? Because the BRICS currency, if you remember when the last time BRICS summit happened, the BRICS currency was spoken about. And the moment it was spoken about, President Trump, who had at that time just become the president, he had immediately threatened BRICS countries that if you do that, we're going to impose sanctions. If you make dollar a weak currency, if you launch a parallel currency, we are going to take some action. So he literally gave a threat. Now, I think from then to now, a lot of water has flown under the bridge, as they say. I think the matter of BRICS currency may again come up. And, BRICS has become a very, very complicated, group. There is China and there is Russia. Well, Russia is a friend of India. And China, we all know, I need not overemphasize, although we've done slightly better with China in the last few months than compared to what was happening earlier. So I think it's a very complicated situation with the new entrance to BRICS. We have a lot of other countries who part of the BRIC, and there are a lot of them who are in the queue. So I think Argentina, Brazil would be one of the most economically significant part of the visit. Of course, Namibia and Ghana, of course, are. But Brazil, Argentina, where an Indian Prime Minister is going practically after 6 decades, this has been a very long time. So the outcome of BRICS summit, Megha, for me as an economist, would be the most significant, because given the geo-economic scenario in the world at this point of time, this whole tariff hoopla which is going on, with 9 July being the date of Qayamat, which President Trump has fixed, that if do it by 9 July or we'll do this or that, God knows what's going to happen. I think for me, that'll be the biggest takeaway and the biggest thing to observe as an economist, Megha.
Okay, coming back to you, Professor Nalapat, and it is important to know that the Mercosur countries, which is Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay, India has a preferential trade agreement with these countries that form part of Mercosur. Now, is there a possibility that in this bilateral talks that Prime Minister has with Lula da Silva, the President of Brazil, there could be a possibility of at least the initiation of a comprehensive strategic partnership and even talks of a free trade agreement, as we have been able to sign earlier with Australia and now very recently with the United Kingdom?
Well, Megha, I think you're perfectly right. And I would discount this question about a BRICS currency. The fact is China is not coming. I mean, the reason given publicly through various China-friendly outlets and others, unsuspecting outlets, is not the real reason. According to my sources, the real reason is a lot of internal unrest in China caused by rising unemployment. So President Xi finds it difficult to get away for that length of time, and therefore he's not coming. And he's coming up with this lame excuse that a fellow BRICS member is being invited and given a state dinner. So why should he come? I mean, that is a completely false explanation from the real truth, that he's in serious trouble. Now, as far as Putin is concerned, it needs to be remembered that the Brazilian president has not given a firm commitment that President Putin will not be arrested when he lands in Brazil. He has not given a firm commitment at all on that matter, unlike in the case of India, where frankly the Prime Minister has been very adroit in keeping his relationships intact, and where there is no question of President Putin being arrested when he comes to India, where he is most welcome to, and I'm sure he'll make a visit sometime this year, and he'll be warmly welcomed as a good friend. But in the case of Brazil, that assurance is not there, which is one reason why he's staying away, and it's a very important reason. It also shows the independent foreign policy of India, that we don't allow other countries to influence that policy, and in fact we do that policy according to our benefit. That is basically, if some people are looking at make America great again, well, the Prime Minister is looking at making India great again, and he's completely on that particular track. And one example is the fact that President Putin is safe in New Delhi, whereas he's not safe in Rio de Janeiro or Brasilia, Megha.
Yeah. Coming back to you, Ambassador Seth, and carrying forward the conversation of BRICS and how important it becomes to have these BRICS member nations to come together, mostly like-minded, but there are various, thoughts that are also presented. Again, the Russian president is not going to be attending it. Obviously, he has an arrest warrant against him by the ICC. The Chinese president is not attending. The responsibility as India, which is the fourth largest economy of the world today, the onus of carrying forward the BRICS summit would somewhere lie on India as well. How can India influence BRICS? And of course, we already saw what happened at the Quad's foreign ministers meet. It was important to make note, highlight the condemnation member nations have against the terror attacks that happened in Pahalgam on April 22nd, and the condemnation against the perpetrators and the financiers of this terrible, horrific attack that took place. Do you think something similar is also going to be expected by India from the BRICS nations, the member nations, and what is likely to be the outcome of it?
You very rightly said that the terror attack was a heinous attack and terrible, and India made it very clear at the Quad meeting as well, that the victim and the perpetrator should not be equated. And there was a statement which came out condemning the attack and terrorism. So the BRICS summit also, I believe, will have a strong focus on counterterrorism, and we expect that this joint statement will include the condemnation of the terror attacks and condemnation of the perpetrators, and to bring them to justice. So the perpetrators to justice, as well as the terrorists themselves. They need to be also brought to justice. So I think that will be an important element of the BRICS summit. And as you very rightly said, two major nations not attending. The next important, of course, the host is important, but for India, and India would be an important member and would have to, play an active role in ensuring a good outcome for the BRICS, because as India has said, we are committed to the BRICS, and it's an important multilateral forum for India. And it also represents the global south, the countries of the global south mainly. And I think the other things that they will focus on is innovation and energy security and climate finance, etc. So all those elements will be included in the outcome. But I think, yes, India will have to play an important role in ensuring a positive and an agreed statement, which I believe will come about, because I'm sure even there will be representatives from Russia and from China participating in the summit as their special envoys, or what I'm not sure. I haven't seen who will be attending from China and from Putin, but I'm sorry, from Russia.
Yeah, so,
but
obviously Xi Jinping is sending his deputy, so the Premier of China is going to be attending on his behalf. That's the statement that has been released by the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson in the morning today.
I missed that. So they will be there, representatives will be there from both countries, and who will be also participating in the deliberations and in the outcome document. So I think India will play directing, a kind of guiding role, and get a good summit statement, because BRICS is important. Yes, about the currency, I think there will be, there's been no agreement. India has said that we are not looking at a BRICS currency right now. Whereas China was very keen on having a BRICS currency, and some of the other countries did support it, but India has not been supportive of this, and so I think that may not figure in the deliberations. I mean, in the outcome, in the deliberations, yes. And energy security, climate finance, and creating a just and rule-based order, especially for the global south, who want that there should be a fair playing field for everybody. And I think that will also be one of the areas of focus. And let's, also not forget that Prime Minister Modi is one of the top leaders who will be there. As Mr. Nalapat also mentioned, he'll be one of the top leaders attending the BRICS summit. And definitely his guidance and his views will be taken on board on all current issues, including all the wars that are going on, terrorism, of course, and the current approach of the US on tariffs, on trade, which is upsetting the global system. And I think that will also be a part of the talks. And innovation and digital, regulation for the digital world and the AI, those issues also are important. And I believe, and I think they will be discussed.
Right.
And it should be a positive outcome.
Okay, all right. On that note, I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast. We'll, of course, keep bringing you all the latest updates. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to arrive in Ghana. That's the first stop that he makes. And this will happen overnight, and we'll keep a close track of his meetings that will take place thereafter. On that note, I slip into a short break. Thanks for watching Newsx.